What's up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work To Game, and I just finished recording the summary of the 3.5-hour long live letter. So I tried to do it as brief as possible. I'm sure many of you have questions, and I ended up, as I was talking about Blue Mage, saying this needs to be its own video. What all do we know about Blue Mage? Because they went over so much today that we actually know quite a bit more. Some of this could have been guessed based on previous information, but now we have concrete explanations of how a lot of things are going to work. Knowing there's still going to be a patch reading on January 7th, right before the patch goes live, 4.5, but they say Blue Mage is done. Now, they did not do a PowerPoint, so everything was demonstrated in-game. So that was really, from my point of view, that's really a good sign that that everything's working, at least on kind of their client, and that they really do mean it when they say everything's done. Now, you're going to go to, it sounds like everything, they showed it in kind of, it looked like Gridania, but it sounded like, you know, some of this is going to take place in Ul'dah, but basically you're going to go to your NPC, they're going to give you a quest, and then they're going to have you fight some monsters, and then you learn it, and boom, you're a Blue Mage. Now, part of becoming a Blue Mage is they're going to give you your Blue Mage book. They went over this at FanFest, and basically your Blue Mage book is yet another UI element, and this is like your actions book, but in it, the reason it's separate from all your normal actions is it's just page after page, like a fishing log, where these things have question marks and they're just in number order. Those number orders do not represent potency, they do not represent the order you need to learn them in, or anything like that. That's just the number they're in. I'm sure that order will make sense when you have them all unlocked, but don't try to look for a pattern for now. Now, when you mouse over one of those little question marks, all it's going to tell you is the zone. So it'll tell you, hey, this has to be done in the hard mode of this dungeon was an example they said. They said Brayflux Longstop Hard was their hint. Hopefully that's a sign that Brayflux Longstop Hard has one, but I'm sure we'll know soon enough. And so that does mean when it's out in an open area, it's going to take some time for the community to find out which of the monsters in an area is the monster that drops the ability, because they aren't 100% drop rates. So you can learn them in whatever order. They for example said you may want to learn number 1, number 15, and number 27. Now during this they showed a bunch of mounts, but that's not what we're here to talk about. And so they talked also about, say you want to learn Bad Breath. First, you're going to have to gain threat from the enemy and make sure that you see the skill before you kill it. So basically, you're going to tag it, you're going to let it, you're going to see the skill, not get touched by the skill. So you don't have to stand in Bad Breath and then somehow kill this thing. It can, you know, the skill's going to come out, you're going to dodge Bad Breath. Don't stand in bad is still a good rule for 14. And then you evade it, and then you're going to attack them, and there is a chance that when it dies, you obtain the skill. Now, when you obtain it, you may wonder, well, where did it go, since they're not in order? You go up there, and there's going to be a green dot on the little... They showed 4 pages. I'm sure that that number could change over time. And that's going to show where you have abilities that you haven't checked yet, your new abilities. And then when you go to that page, there's going to be an ability that has a green dot on it. And that will tell you, hey, it's a new ability. Your active actions will be down there below that. That's the 24 active actions that you currently have in your build. And you can just drag and drop it like any other skill onto that bar. Now, the active actions, you have a total of 24 for your build, but you may want to try stuff out. So there are, at launch, going to be 5 presets already available. So you can have these different saved presets. This is my main build that I've been running. This is what I've been running when I'm playing alone. And this is what I've been running, you know, to try see if I can make a Blue Mage tank, whatever, because this, since you're not allowed in Duty Finder, you're allowed to be suboptimal, and there's going to be a ton of suboptimal play just based on everything we've learned here. Now you take those 5 presets, you pick your one, you go out into the world, and the question is, well, how strong are these abilities? So Bad Breath, for example, inflicts a bunch of status debuffs. We would expect it to. It has poison, it has 10% damage dealt down, 40% heavy, slow, darkness, paralysis. The poison is going to be a base potency of 10, and then have an effect time of 15 seconds, and it's a damage over time. And it's going to also, they're also going to have a 1-second silence. So if you cast that kind of at the right time, you might silence an ability that they're in the middle of casting, and then also leave them with a ton of debuffs. So they showed off even more mounts, and then they showed us that They had other abilities such as the Flying Sardine. This is going to have a base potency of 10. Keep in mind all these are scaled based on your gear. And it has an additional effect of a silence 1 second. And they showed us a new UI setting here that might actually be relevant to Blue Mage, because you may want to have this kind of up from time to time, where you can actually go into your UI settings and you can set windows to have lower opacity than 100. So having an opacity effect, there's supposed to be a green bar on there that's the recommended opacity that you stay above, but that you can go below that. So that's exciting. They showed us water cannon. This is water elemental damage. One of the things to keep in mind is that we are going to have aspected abilities here, and that's going to become important a little bit later. This has a base potency of 120, and you have the base chance on learning Flying Sardine is 20%. Bad Breath is 30%. So the skill, the rate at which you learn these skills, how many things you're going to end up having to kill before your bad luck comes through, is going to vary based on what the skill is and the content difficulty. Now, the content difficulty is really interesting, because what that means is as you level up as your Blue Mage, you may be able to get into playing against, you see Morbles multiple times. And so if you don't get it the first time, you don't have to stay there and farm that forever if you don't want to. You can wait, and as you play it at a higher difficulty, that base rate should be increased. So if you play a dungeon on hard, hopefully that will increase it if that ability can also be learned in normal. Now, he has debug settings on, so he clicks on just some abilities to just be learned. So they showed us Mighty Guard. You're going to take lesser damage. Enmity obtained will increase while this effect, but damage dealing will be lowered. That sounds a lot like tanking to me. So in these 5 builds, I'm expecting people to already try to tank as a Blue Mage. Level 5 Death is hinted to be available when the level cap is increased to level 60. So there is level 5 Death. That's such a silly name for a word. Just not this patch. They showed us a long cast in the Twitch clip, so just keep in mind that when you're balancing your rotations, there may be a huge amount of variance in like the cast times on these, the MP costs, so there may be great skills out there that don't fit within the rotation of the build you're going for. So expect a ton of guides out there on builds, but really a lot of those guides are going to have to be centered on after you've unlocked all the abilities, because otherwise there could be, oh, well, why are you using that ability after this ability? That's so suboptimal to what I'm doing. It's like, yes, but those are the abilities I have. So along the way, expect people to just have all kinds of rotations. Equipment-wise, they are still int-based, okay? Not shocking. They said they were a caster, but it is calculated differently than Summoner, Red Mage, and Blue Mage, which everything about this job is different, so that's not shocking, but it is exciting to hear it put into actual words. The damage is not based on your weapon, so that's a big deal. It's based instead on your armor and your accessories. Now, based on having like a particular blue skill, you might have other blue skills that do more damage. And so when you talk about a 24 skill build, it sounds like these are really going to play off each other and things like that. And they're going to hint towards which builds certain abilities might be best in. The reason that their damage is not based on your weapon damage is, for one, they can't go into instance content. So it's pointless to obtain weapons when you're not necessarily going to be in as much instance content where a lot of the weapons drop. There are likely Blue Mage weapons drop from primals, raids, and so on. So they kind of hinted that, but that they're not required to get your potency up because you're just going to be out in the world. In terms of leveling, you may want to go into fates. You're encouraged to do that because you're out in the open world, and fates are the open world content that they oftentimes leave ignored. So it's exciting they engaged with those. But if you're running a party, say you have 4 Blue Mages, and one of you learns the skill, the other 3 will also learn that skill if they don't have it. So where that becomes a big deal is that makes you go a lot faster. Now, first of all, they did clarify that does not mean you get 4 rolls at the ability. You get 1 roll as a group. Well, then that's not faster. No, it still very much is. So what that means is that before you'd have 4 30% chances, one of you gets it. You do it again, one of you gets it. You do it again, one of you gets it. You do it 5 more times, the final guy gets it. That first guy has had to either A, go on to the next area on his own and farm suboptimally alone, or B, stay with them and farm something for an ability that he already has. Also suboptimal. This means that when you play as a group, you know, it only takes one person in the group tagging, then the ability is shown, then you can all melt the mob. So you all tag one, you're all standing there, kind of tanking it, doing your thing. They cast the ability, you evade it, then you mark it, everybody blows it down. The next guy casts his ability, blow it down, blow it down, blow it down. You just got 4 chances as a group with 4 times the DPS, and if any one of those drops the ability, you're all done, and you can move on to the next area, assuming you know where the next area is. So that's a huge change in how people are going to run this content. It does mean that there are going to be big blue mage groups, and that is very exciting. Now, we do know that MP and things like that are going to cost, so expect people in your group to maybe need to run different builds and things like that, because devising a rotation seems like it's going to be very complex. Job quests are not based on level, but based on skills learned. So after you learn a certain skill, you might have a quest. So since the job quests don't reward the skill, they kind of go the other way around. Now, back in Ul'dah, we're going to have our masked carnival. You're going to go to a masked NPC. There's going to be a spherical stage. There's various stages, various different phases, various objectives, various different kind of guys to kill. And they showed us one of those. And basically, there's going to be an enemy list that's going to tell you what they're weak to, what their type is, what kind of resistance they have, and kind of all the hints you would need so that you can kind of solve what the best build might be, in which order to target the things you're doing, and how to beat the overall encounter, so that as you go through the different phases, you can try to do this. Now, in the top right, it's going to show you the time. So if you've been playing Smash, it kind of reminds me of some of those modes. And the rewards are going to be based on your record time. So like setting that record might push you to the next tier. So you're gonna be able to earn multiple tiers of rewards by getting to that best time. So that is very exciting to kind of see what the Masked Carnival is. To clear all of it, I think will be a good way for them to justify having all the abilities be useful for you, even if you just have one core build that justifies most of your open world time on this class. Now, what all does this mean? This is everything we know to this point. It should be dropped with 4.5. It does sound like it could be up to a week later, just to let kind of everybody get through MSQ and stuff like that. But it's not pushing till 4.55, so there will be plenty of time. You're starting at level 1. You're going to go to level 50. The cap will be increased. They talked about already knowing there's an ability at level 60. The cap will be increased with future patches. We don't know what that means. Does that mean 4.5, 6, 7, 8? Does that mean 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, right? And then how many levels do we get? Do we get them 15 levels at a time, 30 levels at a time? Most common guess is 10 levels at a time. We could get them 1 level at a time. It doesn't really matter, but at some point there will be a capped class. There will be capped blue mages attempting current content in non-random groups. So everything we know about this class says that it is going to utterly turn on its head the way the battle system works now. I think there's a lot of strength in that. That gives a ton of power to the players to kind of define their own experience and to help really let Final Fantasy take advantage of everything they've learned across Deep Dungeons and Eureka and things like that, because those have very much acted as consolidated test realms where they can go in and they can jack with the battle system, and then once that content is cleared, they can go, people just go right back out into the world, and if they liked it or didn't, it doesn't matter, it was over there. And so now they've been able to take the things they think are working, overlay it onto a true to form blue mage, and ideally introduce a way where from here on out, if they want to turn the battle system on its head with the introduction of a new class, especially a class that's already been established in another game as working in a way that does not fit within the current battle system, they will now have these new limited jobs to kind of do that. So I think this is really exciting. It does lean very heavily into the more lateral progression side of the game where you can come help me work on my blue mage, or there's some solo content for me. By the time you pair this with trusts and things like that, I think that you could see a lot of people feel like, yeah, I don't even do the raids. I don't even do the trials. And they still get a lot of joy out of this game just from clearing everything once for the sake of story and then never. And so the idea that there's now a different way to play this game that's much more casual, I'm sure is going to frustrate some of the player base, but it does broaden this game's appeal. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that come back just to play Blue Mage, and that's okay. That's very exciting. They didn't really hint how long it's going to take to hit level cap. I'm sure some of you are going to do it in a ridiculously short amount of time. Keep in mind, say it drops the week after 4.5. So you have 1 week to clear the raid, clear the dungeon, clear your MSQ. So you knock that out in a day or two, take it easy. It comes out, you grind it all the way to cap. That content has to last you till 5.0. So beating it in 2 days may not make sense. And hitting level cap doesn't mean you have all your abilities unlocked. So I imagine it's going to take people several weeks to where they have all the abilities unlocked. But we still have a huge amount of time before March, which is when you're really going to start seeing a lot more changes. So this is meant to be something that you enjoy at your own pace, enjoy your own builds. You're going to see Brian and I enjoying it probably a little too much. So on that note, the other thing that I would say is it is December, what is today, 21st? We have like 2 weeks until this patch goes live. In that time, if you need to take a break from this game, this is a great time to take a break. Enjoy time with family, enjoy time with friends, play other games, all of that. You will not see a whole lot of Final Fantasy content coming out from me. I'm going to log on maybe 1 or 2 more times, check my retainers, kind of finish stuff up, and then at 4.5, I'm going to start hitting it because we're basically going to have 4.5 content that's huge, that's going to carry me several months. Then we're in March, we get 4.55 content. That carries me a few more months. Then you start talking about Shadowbringers prep. And so you start talking about everything you need to do to make sure that you're really ready for an expansion and all of that. And there's a lot of things you can do to be really optimal there. So I do not see a breaking point from January 8th until the launch of Shadowbringers where you can just take a huge amount of time off this game. So to avoid burnout, because if Shadowbringers is already a risk of burnout when an expansion drops, just think about the people who've been playing for 6 months straight at that point, and they just crank all the way through in one 9-month sprint. You could be really tired of 14 at the end of that. So pace yourself. Pace yourself, pace yourself. Blue Mage is a limited job. It is not allowed to be at cap on launch. So racing to get it to its cap doesn't get you into some magical end game content with everybody else. It gets you into level 50 content. So keep in mind, it is meant to be enjoyed, and that's kind of where I fall on it. I think it's a big class change for this game. I think it's a great thing, and I think that everything we know about Blue Mage at this point, that's everything that was in the live letter, everything I can remember. If there's something else, feel free to drop it in the comments below. I would love to know. That's just everything that I think is relevant that came to mind, but it's a big class with a lot of hints. And I look forward to diving into it with you guys. So, on that note, Blue Mage, January 8th, 18th, whatever that ends up being. But January 8th, we go into 4.5, which is going to be the Blue Mage patch. Whether or not it's there on day 1. Enjoy it. Look forward to it. I can't wait. My name is Chris with Work To Game. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.